There is a way to engage in civil dialogue. Nothing really big has ever happened in this country or anywhere in the world that didn't involve a discourse that can take place in an environment that's a neutral environment, in an environment where people feel free to express themselves, but also feel free to listen to each other.
In what kind of future do you want to live? Do you dream of a bigger, bolder vision for our Racine community? So do we. Tell us your ideas on our Facebook page, where you can participate live in our Resilient Communities briefings and get invited to upcoming conversations. The future will come, whether we're ready for it or not. Let's be ready. Join our Resilient Communities initiative. Together, we'll be the architects of our community's shared, prosperous future.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Roger Dower, the president of the Johnson Foundation, and I want to thank you all for joining us and warmly welcome you all to Wingspread, to our third and last in this briefing series on resilient communities. But let me promise you, this is not the end, it's just the beginning of our long-term commitment to create a community collaborative to enhance the social and economic outcomes in the community where we work and live. And look, tonight we really have a special program on. I think you'll find it a lot of fun and very informative. So I don't want to be the one in between you and that happening. So let me turn this program over to Ashley Stake, Program Officer of the Johnson Foundation and the leader of this initiative. Ashley?
Thank you, Roger. And welcome to all of you joining us here in person and online for the third and final briefing in our Resilient Communities briefing series. For those of you joining us online, don't forget to click share so that you can give your friends and family a chance to participate in tonight's engaging discussion. So we've received record attendance and engagement both in person here at the foundation and online over the last 2 weeks. For our first briefing, we've had over 3,000 views on Facebook within the first week of the briefing. Last week, we had over 5,000 views. So the dialogue is definitely building. And all of your commitment and interest over the last 3 weeks has engaged or inspired and motivated us even more to continue this conversation after the briefing series is concluded, and to really maintain our commitment to ensuring a stronger and better community in our neighborhood of communities. So 2 weeks ago, if you all remember, we learned more about what a resilient region is, and last week we explored just how resilient we may or may not be. Tonight, Rebecca Ryan is going to give us, take us on an interactive journey to explore our future, the future that we are currently headed toward, and the future that we want to achieve. So please join me in welcoming Rebecca Ryan.
We had some praise hands emojis up here in the front. Which camera do I look into to say hi to Facebook? Because we are going to end up with thousands and thousands of views on Facebook Live if past trends continue. So first of all, I really want to thank the Johnson Foundation at Wingspread for putting on this series. You know, the power of just doing this week after week after week, not enough time lags that you forget. You know, you remember what Dr. Foster said, you remember what Rob had to say. And these things can really build on each other, and it was a very ambitious program. We've been planning this for a long time. So very ambitious, and then adding this online component has been amazing. We've been participating in this online component, and it's just another way to blow the conversation out one more notch. So tonight, I've kind of got 3 beats for you, 3 beats planned. So if you love the theater, you can think of this as kind of 3 acts. The first act is to think about, all right, let's think about Racine, and let's think about like what's really happening sort of statewide and what we have to look forward to. Because some of you know, we talk about the layer cake of government, that the feds have the money and the states have the power and the locals have the problems. Except now, the feds have no money. And the states have kind of gone on a little bit of an ideological tear, right? So the power doesn't seem very balanced and everybody's mad at each other. And we still have the problems. So that layer cake has been a little messed up. So I want to talk first kind of about the context of that. So that's kind of beat number 1. Beat number 2 is choose your own adventure. So Ashley just mentioned that this is going to be an interactive journey. Can I just see a quick show of hands for those of you who already took your phone out and followed the on-screen instructions before you sat down? Okay, you are very good at following instructions. Some of you, sir, I just have to call you out. You were like, on-screen instructions. Didn't even notice that. You know what? You're going to have another opportunity. This is just one giant hug for you. We got you. We got you, my friend. So it will be interactive, but it will be anonymous. And at the appropriate time, I'll make sure that everybody is signed up who wants to participate. And we're going to do a series of choices to sort of choose our own adventure for the future of Racine. And then finally, we're going to have the final bit of interaction, which is going to be some Q&A, both with you guys here and with our Facebook Live community. So it's going to be a fun night. We're going to go quickly. I guess I should ask, are you ready? Yes. Wow, one person is like, yes, I'm so ready. I'm so ready. All right, let's get to it. So, first of all, I'm a futurist. Yes, it's really a thing. And I'm trained in this professional process, much like a CPA is trained in a professional process to sort of balance things, and you have to take your certifications and so forth. So professional futurists are trained in a process. And one of the first things that we do for a client is we say, all right, what is your official future? And the way you can think about this is kind of it's a future that is has no surprises, no sort of unexpected no surprises, and it's kind of a business as usual future, right? So it's a future where you'd say, all right, if we sort of behave in the future like we have in the past, what does our future look like? Just be honest right now. How many of you Show of hands, just real quickly, if you feel brave. How many of you, when you think about, okay, then our official future, if we do what we've done in the past, is going to be a little bleak? How many of you feel that way? Okay. How many of you are like, oh, heck no, I see the best of this community. This community is going to crush it in the future. Let me see a show of hands. There needs to be a support group for these 4 people right here, and we need to wrap around you. But, I want to share that if you feel like we have a kind of a bleak future ahead of us, you are not alone. We have several members of the Local Government Institute of Wisconsin Board of Directors here. Let's just see a real quick show of hands. We've got Jean here. I saw Jerry here. Gary Becker is here, who's the LGI Executive Director. And we did a pretty comprehensive survey of thought leaders in Wisconsin asking, what do you think the future of local government, the official future for local governments will be? What will the future of our cities be? And basically, just between us and the 50,000 people who are going to eventually watch us on Facebook, if we were going to write a script for a movie about what those subject matter experts had to say about the future of our communities, the title of the movie would have been Naked and Afraid. So there seems to be a fair amount of concern about our local communities' futures. That if present trends continue, if we continue to do in the future what we've been doing in the past, it's not going to look cute. But LGI's board of directors, and this is bipartisan, right? It's elected officials who, have a stake in the ground. They know that the future doesn't just happen to us. Right? We also can take action on the future. So they convened last year 125 people, and it wasn't just government nerds. It was young professionals, folks like Nick, right? It was entrepreneurs. It was people in the community who were starting businesses. It was hackers, the community that breaks stuff for a living, right? And it was government nerds, and it was people who work in city government. We got them all together, and we said, hey, let's design some scenarios for our future that are beyond this official future, right? Let's imagine what our communities could be like if things went well. Let's imagine how our communities would respond if there was a disruption. And here's what we found. I think we ran 15 scenarios, and there were a few elements that were true for any kind of future for our communities. And the first element was this: the idea that if our communities are going to be resilient, if we are going to survive and thrive in the future, we have to reach beyond the usual suspects. Today I had lunch with 2 of your aldermen and some other people as well. And I don't want to say that they begged, but sort of. They said it was mostly young professionals at this lunch. They said, if you have an opinion about the future, please come to our council meetings. We are aching to hear from people who are not the same people who come to every city council meeting. And that's not throwing any shade on the people who are at every city council meeting. It is to say that our local officials know that they need to reach beyond the people that they normally hear from. So this idea of engagement, I want to tell one quick story about engagement. A lot of people ask me, Rebecca, where are things going on? Like, what are some cities that you're really paying attention to? Because I'm a futurist and I work almost exclusively with cities. Chattanooga is one of them. And I want to tell you a story about this image that you're seeing on the screen. Several years ago, a young professional in Chattanooga realized that back in the day, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago, cities had fonts. Cities had their own fonts. I mean, if you've ever been in Microsoft Word and you've tried to move off of Times New Roman, first of all, I want to say you're my people, because you're obviously thirsty for change, right? But you've got Athenia, and you've got Greek, and you've got Hebrew. Like there are cities had fonts. And so this young graphic designer in Chattanooga, he was like, hey man, it would be really cool if Chattanooga had its own font. So he started thinking about what that font could look like. And then, because Chattanooga is a small enough town where you kind of know people, he started talking to people about his idea. And he knew it was bodacious and outrageous and all that kind of stuff. And somebody was like, you know what? There is an old guy in this community. He's Viennese. He's from Austria. He actually used to letterpress city fonts. Like, this guy is like a living legacy of this. So it was just complete happenstance. So young guy and older Viennese guy, older Austrian guy, they get together and they create the Chattanooga font. Super cool. But here's where it gets even better. The city is like, we love this. We're putting it on every sign. It is now the font for the bike lanes. It is the font for all the municipal signs. Slowly over time, they are taking this intergenerational collaboration between these two folks who did something great for the city, and they're saying, we're going to accelerate that. So this is a story to me about a couple of things. It's about multi-generational problem solving, right? So tonight we know that we've got a lot of leaders who are kind of older and they're more experienced in their careers, and we know that online with our Facebook folks, I keep pointing over there to Susie, online with our Facebook Live, we've got younger folks. But how do we intentionally start to bring generations together? And then how do we get a big warm hug from the community when things like this happen? Because you know as well as I do that a couple of designers come and say, hey, we've designed a font for the city. It would have been really easy for the city to say, too expensive, not going to work, isn't going to be cool. But instead they said, how can we make this happen? How can we do it over time? So collaboration is the first key for local governments in Wisconsin. Engagement is. Second one is collaboration. I got a little ahead of myself. I just want to point out, so this is the University of Wisconsin-Madison women's crew team. And this was not earlier this spring. I think this was 2 springs ago. And what I just want to point out is these folks did not grow up training together. I know that there was at the time at least one very serious rift in that boat. 2 gals who didn't even like each other very much at all, right? But when it comes to actually getting some momentum, you think about sculling, right? You start at a dead stop and you have to pull together. And one person gets out of sync and it messes up the whole race. And how you have to put aside your differences and you've got to be focused on that goal, sculling together, often with a coxswain screaming at you from the front of the boat, right? And what we know about local government in the future is it's going to be a team sport. It's going to have to be if we expect to survive. So collaboration. And then finally, this notion of accountability. Especially for this next generation. This is the thing that always blows my mind. When you talk to the next generation about things like taxes, they're not griping about their taxes. What they're asking is, what am I getting for my taxes? So, like the mayor of Columbus, Ohio, he said, they were going to eliminate recycling. And the millennials were like, are you kidding me? Like, I grew up watching the garbage barge go up and down the East Coast. You cannot get rid of recycling. This isn't a community I even want to live in if you're going to eliminate recycling. And he was like, well, we're going to have to charge you for it. And the next generation that spends $300 on a watch every 2 years and $200 to $500 on a cell phone every 18 months is like, what are we talking here? He's like, $12 a month. They were like, please, So this notion that, for the next generation to be sustainable in the future, it's not about cutting. It is about accountability. Happy to pay. Tell me what it's paying for. How can we start to measure some of these outcomes? And once again, we've got choices. This is one example from, the U.S. government, the federal government, on how they're trying to run analytics on the services that they provide every day. So, if you want to think about, do we fund government websites? Well, we've got 140,000 people online now. I can't remember what day this was, but see the upper right-hand corner? Can somebody read that out? Where's my refund? That's the most searched for, thing on the government website. And that should be a searched for thing. And it's wonderful to be able to report. This is, where people are spending their time. This is what people are searching for. So again, let's not get twisted around the axle when we think about the future, always going to the bottom line, always going to the budget. We should be saying, okay, where's the value? How can we be accountable in talking about the value, communicating the value, and tracking our own progress? So those are kind of the 3 things that came out of this big study about the future of local government in Wisconsin. And when you think about those 3 things, engagement, accountability, collaboration, you can see how this all feathers in really nicely with the things we've been talking about so far with resilient communities. But once we understand those things, then we have to ask ourselves the question, are we in? You know, I've been doing futuring for quite a while, and it's always amazing that, first of all, when you ask people to think about the future, like you, they kind of go to a dark place. Most people think the future will be worse than the past, despite millennia of contrary evidence. You know, I mean, we are definitely living better, living longer than we were 150 years ago, 300 years ago. But then, in addition to people going to a very dark place, a lot of people think the future just happens to them. That, you know, it's like, well, there's nothing I can do about it. I have to say, unless you're a millennial. Because millennials, a lot of people say, oh, millennials, they think they should get a trophy for everything. Oh, millennials, they think they can do anything. And you know what I say? Thank God. Thank God. Because Generation Xers, this very skeptical generation who would rather, and this is my generation, we'd rather make ironic sitcoms about the state of things, right? Millennials, this group at lunch today, they were like talking about storming the establishment and like throwing down some demands. I'm overstating, but only moderately. Only moderately. But you know, this is a generation that believes they can do anything, and they engage around that, and they do it in a team. So this is, the millennials are right on time, in my opinion, and we would be wise to support and in some cases even follow their lead. But let's start to get creative. We kind of know the state of local government in Wisconsin. We know from Rob's presentation, we know from Dr. Foster's presentation sort of what these markers of resiliency are and how we score, and you know, it's not looking awesome for Racine right now. But now let's actually do a little futuring. Let's actually do a little futuring and create some alternative futures. Let me level set for you and show you kind of what we're going to do. Ladies, honestly, anybody in here a Stitch Fix person? Oh, that hand went up so proud. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Do you mind giving a shout out to explain what Stitch Fix is?
It's a subscription service where you put in what you like in your profile from a clothing perspective and accessories, and every month they pick for you and send you stuff.
Yeah.
And then if you don't like it, you send it back.
Right. And I am not a shareholder of Stitch Fix, but I love this example. I also have a Stitch Fix subscription. And so what I love is they send you a box every month, and it's like Christmas morning, and you open the box, and then you try this stuff on. And I'll be honest, the very first dress I pulled out of my Stitch Fix box, I was like, oh, hell no. No. And then I put it on. And I was like, I just wore it at my wedding reception. It was a beautiful dress. But the beauty of that notion of trying these things on, right, is very much what we do in futuring. We create alternative futures for our community so that we get to sort of try on what the future might feel like, what it might look like. Because some of the plausible, like, let's just brainstorm some things. What is one positive disruption, a positive disruption that could happen in this community? A positive disruption.
A train connecting Milwaukee and Chicago with downtown Racine to the south.
Right on. Somehow Racine gets connected to the north and to the south, right? And then we get a bunch of place-based development and transit-oriented development. Right on. Okay. What if we tried on that future? In 5 years after that got done, where do you think Racine would be? What would be some markers that you would begin to see and feel around Racine being connected to Milwaukee and Chicago? Whatever you think. There would be more new businesses. What else? Housing values would probably go up quite a bit. Yep, absolutely. What else?
Demand for housing.
Demand for housing would help drive that increase in prices. Absolutely. So what we just did was we tried on a future, right? And how did it feel? How did it feel? Not bad, right? Not bad. Different than the tight pants we're wearing right now, if I do say so myself, right? So what we're trying to do here with these alternative futures is try these futures on. And this is one of my only nerd slides. I'm sorry, but I am a nerd. The way we talk about this in Foresight is we talk about the cone of plausibility. The cone of plausibility. So here we are today, where we are dealing with a finite number of variables. And then a responsible futurist will say, all right, what is our probable future? See it right there? What is our probable future? That's the official future. Like, what happens if nothing changes? And most of you felt, not so awesome. If nothing changes, our baseline future, our probable future is not cute, right? And then we say, well, let's throw a couple wild cards in there and let's do a couple of other scenarios. Let's try on some other futures, but let's also identify our preferable future, the future that we actually want to chase. And some of you in here have visions for the kind of future you want, that preferable future. Now, why do you think that we do multiple futures for a community? Facebook Live, I want to ask you too. Why do you think we do more than one future? Why not just look at our preferable future? Rainbows and unicorns and puppies. Why don't we just do what we want to come true, what we want to have happen? It's not completely predictable. Remember, this is one thing in this giant cone of plausibility. Why else? Multiple stakeholders. So that means that things could change. Yeah, it might not be preferable for everybody. That's very preferable for you, sir, but it may not be preferable for the next person. Why else? That's it. That's it. You know, as we go out over time, this cone broadens. There are so many more elements that could be in play. Positive disruptions, negative disruptions, right? New mayors, new city council members, old mayors, right? All of these things can happen. So the reason we do multiple futures is because we know that for you, there is not one future. There are many plausible futures, and we encourage you to do multiple because when you prepare for several things, you're more prepared generally. So we don't do futuring to determine what the future will be. We do futuring to determine how to be ready for the future. So let's get ready to participate. Please get your cell phones out. Please make sure, if you haven't already, that your cell phone is on mute or stun. Nothing that will distract your neighbor. So you have your cell phone out, and sir, for you who didn't register earlier, here again are the instructions. Text, now this is if you haven't already registered and gotten the confirmation text back saying you're all registered for Rebecca Ryan's session. So what you do is you text to 22333, put that in your to line. It's the number you're texting to. And then you put in T for the, J for Johnson, F for Foundation, TGF3, because this is our third presentation in this series, TGF3. And once you send, you're going to get an autoresponder saying you're in. You are in. So now you're registered, which means that your vote will count. Okay. I'll give you all a chance. All right. Eyes are back here. All right, here we go. So you're in. So we're just going to do a sample poll. This is just a sample, just so that you kind of get the hang of it, because we got a few others we're going to do, right? So this is your first sample poll. I have to admit, I'm kind of taking a deep breath here. I hope this technology works. And your choices are going to be, I'm sorry, let me just go back to this. Your choices for this sample poll are only going to be, you're going to choose one letter, A, B, C, D, or E, that corresponds to your response, okay? So again, you're going to text us to 22333. Facebook Live, that goes for you too. You can multitask. You can put Facebook Live on a different screen while you come up to this text messaging stuff. So here we go. Come on. Here it comes. Here it comes. Come on. Okay, well, one more click. No, that was not one more click. Hang on. Here we go. Here's the question. When I think about the 20-year future of Racine County, now we're thinking a little bit bigger here than just the city, I think it will be a lot worse than today. B, somewhat worse than today. C, about the same. D, somewhat better. And E, way better than today. This is a 20-year future. Yep, and this is for the county, so I'm asking you to think a little bit bigger, right? A little bit bigger. This is based on what your assumptions are. Will things continue to be as they have been, right? Will there be a disruption that will cause us to do something different, right? And that's actually an awesome question, because in foresight, you want to declare what your assumptions are. So you're going to make a series of assumptions that are going to go into your A, B, C, D, or E. All right, so I'm going to close this poll in about 10 seconds. Again, text to 22333, A, B, C, D, or E. I always love the last 10 seconds because it's like, see what's happening, getting all jiggy. But what we're seeing is biggest response from some moderate optimists. Now, for those of you, I mean, come on, you didn't commit. You're like, it's going to be somewhat better, somewhat. Because Rebecca just told us that every 150 to 300 years, things get better overall. She told us we get too shady about the future. No, but a quick call out. What went into, if you were a D or an E, was there something you were thinking of that made you think it's going to be better? Real quick.
Yeah, we're here now talking about it.
There you go, Jerry. What else?
Vision integrated receiving.
Yeah, that's right. We've got some programs already in place. Other things.
The projections are that we're coming up on upward trend.
Right.
In the economy, generally speaking.
Right, so-
I mean, I've listened to you a few times.
So I know we're on the road together. Shh, you don't have to disclose that.
Right,
No,
we're
but
coming up on this.
yep, but
like upward trend.
exactly, that we're going through a cycle now that is economically more positive. We're coming into a springtime period. It's the season. Whoa, groupies, awesome.
Chicago's spreading north.
Chicago is coming for us whether we like it or not. Yes, absolutely. Okay, good. So now you get the hang of the polling, right? Now we're going to start to create some futures. So I'm sorry this is like wigging out on me. I want a quick show of hands. And for the Facebook folks, just give a thumbs up when I hit your category. Most communities are made up of people who have three different kinds of relationships. There are the homegrowns. These are the people who were born here, raised here, and mostly stayed here. The second group are the boomerangers. These are the folks who grew up here, probably couldn't wait to leave, went away, and then the strong sucking sound of Racine pulled you back. You guys are my boomerangs. And then the third group is transplants. These are people who maybe weren't even born in the state of Wisconsin, but you moved here usually for love or money. Those are the two most common reasons that people relocate, move their whole lives. So, Facebook Live and you guys, how many of you self-identify as, I'm homegrown, born, raised, always been? You're like, Racine or die. Okay, cool. All right? Cool. All right, second group, boomerang. Grew up here, couldn't wait to go, but came back. Holy smokes. Okay, a smaller group. Transplants? What? Okay. I can't wait to hear how the Facebook Live community thumbs up on this as well, but I do want to give you a little inside baseball right now. The communities I'm the most bullish on have a higher percentage of transplants and boomerangers than their percentage of homegrowns. So there's no reason for me to feel like you guys are indicative of this community, but I will say this, if you guys ran this community, I would be all in on a bet with you, and here's why. Very often, homegrowns are the most negative about their community. Things will never change, it's always been this, oh my gosh, right? Plus, with the homegrowns, the high school mafia still runs everything. So, right? But in communities that have a higher proportion of boomerangs and transplants, folks who have been other places, they have a greater appreciation. They're able to see it with fresh eyes, see the opportunities with fresh eyes, see the assets with fresh eyes. So I'm just saying, if you guys ran this joint, I'd be I'd be all in on red 7. Okay, so now let's start iterating some futures. I brought 3 choices along for us. Each choice is going to have a set of consequences. And I'm going to ask just this group. I'm just going to ask this group right over here. I want just this group to vote like you think homegrowns would vote on these next choices. Okay? This is just a challenge. We're just running an experiment. Remember, the majority can vote however they want, right? Vote your conscience, vote what you think is the right thing for the future, but you guys have to vote homegrown. All right. So here's your first choice. We'll get there eventually, even if it takes a second to load. Try it again. It'll come, I'm sure. I'm sorry. We did not have this problem through run-through. Here's the question. I'll read it out. So communities along the I-94 corridor are choosing whether to invest. There it is. 2 communities along the I-94 corridor are choosing whether to invest millions to extend water and sanitary sewer lines. And they're going to do it for 5 miles. How should the communities respond? Option A, they shouldn't do it. It's too big of a taxpayer investment, right? B, they should figure out a way to get it done. For example, split the cost, pass a bond, like figure it out. Or C, they should just double the investment and extend it for 10 miles instead of just 5. I'm going to leave this open for about 15 more seconds. All right, I'm gonna close this down in 5 seconds. Last votes are coming in. All right. Oh my God, you guys, it's a horse race. You are making my life so hectic. Okay, so stop voting. Right, this isn't Chicago voting. I don't know who voted 7 times. Okay, so this whole thing tonight. Okay, all right. This is real life here. This is real life. It's probably gonna go a little neck and neck. That one more person on Facebook is like sharing it with all their friends right now, like vote C, right? So whatever. Okay, this is neck and neck. This is neck and neck, right? This, let's go with the 44%. We're just going to say we decide to go with the 44%. They figure out a way to get it done. But by 1 percentage point, we missed extending it 10 miles. By 1 percentage point. Jenny Trick, I got to call on you for just a second. Yesterday, you were at a groundbreaking for InSinkErator. How big of an investment was that? They made a $35 million investment on ground that was broken 10 years ago because some forward-thinking communities kind of did something like this. Is that right? When you think about the investments that are happening on that corridor of investment that happened 10 years ago, when you think about the current economic development, what would you ballpark the potential at? Ballpark the potential. More than 200 million? More than 800 million? Okay, we are now getting into the capital B billion-dollar range. More than $800 million of investment off of something that was done 10 years ago. So what we're basically doing here is we're saying option B here is kind of we've done it before, we'll do it again. What would be the impact if we 1% weren't nosed out on option C? 1% weren't nosed out on option C. You can see how neck and neck this was. And then, of course, the other thing I think about is, which group is calling their elected leaders? Yeah. I think I met that person. All right. Now, as a futurist, we think, okay, what are the implications? We've talked about some of the, some of the immediate. Wow, it is really not loving me right now. We've talked about some of the immediate. The reason it's happening, I know exactly why this happened. This is on a radio frequency, and all of your cell phone activity is like going, boo! Yeah, that's what's happening. Okay, so let's go to our second choice, right? Kind of the design your own adventure, second choice. This is real time, right? The community currently has an opportunity to invest in an event center. Okay, remember, you guys are homegrowns. A, A, yes, absolutely, the $55 million is worth it. B, I don't know. We should probably wait. C, no wait, no how, no. Okay, so the rest of you can vote your preferred future or vote what you would like to see. And I know this is a hot button issue, which is why I wanted to put it up. Give you about 15 more seconds on this. And if you don't know that there's an event center proposed right now, please bone up. Right, exactly. I was talking to Danielle today, Danielle Johnson, who works here at the foundation, and she said she's still running into people in the public who don't even know that this is happening. So, okay, 5 more seconds. This is even closer in a lot of ways. And I think some of the closeness right now is because people are trying to bone up on like, well, would it be good? Wouldn't it be good? You know, what would the first and secondary impacts be? But let me just pull out a futuring hack on this. Whenever there is a change, let's put that in the center, there is this whole cycle of implications that spins off of it, right? And the change happens, and the first things that happen are what are called first order implications, kind of the first generation of implications. Like when we talked about, Trevor, where'd you go? There you are. Wow, I saw that empty chair. It was like he disappeared magically. The first order implication of having that transit come through here, first order implication would actually be what? Before the housing, before any of that, what would be the first order implications? Cost and passing the bond, whatever, jobs. Like just the immediate jobs to get that built, right? Then the second order implications, after it's built, then comes some of the housing stuff, then comes some of the economic expansion pieces. So there are first and second order implications. Let's just play with the event center for a minute. Let's say that we vote with a 38% majority. You say, yes, absolutely, let's do it. What is a first order implication of that? Jobs. Yep. What's another first order implication? We've got elected officials who have actually done stuff like this. What's one of the first things that happens? Come again? Business. Some businesses maybe start to cluster in that neighborhood, right? Who want to take advantage of all that activity. In the case of this event center, voting is still happening. In the case of this event center, what would be a secondary? So, yep, the jobs come, the businesses come, and then what happens because of those things? Businesses come, tax revenue starts to come in, sales tax revenue, business revenue. Say again.
Notoriety. Yeah,
all of a sudden it's like, wow, let's get, you guys get on the map as a place that can, host some of these events and so forth. So, regardless of kind of where this goes in the community, it makes really good sense to be thinking through first, second, and even third order implications. It's not for everybody. Some people have a really hard time thinking through the future in that way. But these big choices, like on the previous choice, do we fund the 5 miles or do we double down for 10, right? Doing those first and second order implications really matters. Okay, so there's an example of the change, followed by the first order implication, followed by the second order implication. Just looks like kind of a little mind map. All right, third choice. Didn't come into the home stretch here. Third choice is this. Racine County's water quality is threatened. How does the community respond? You guys are voting like the homegrowns. A, put it off until it's declared a federal disaster. And the reason that makes sense is because then you get federal disaster money, right? B, bring in a consultant or expert who's going to tell us what to do. C, create a cross-community blue ribbon panel to recommend options, right? The water quality is threatened. What do we do? About 12 more seconds for this. All right, if you were in Camp C, which looks like, the early polling shows that this is going to be the clear winner tonight. If you voted for C, why did you vote C instead of B? Why?
You have to have a stake in your own community, and you have to bring in everybody else with you.
Yep, you have to have a stake in your own community. Is there another reason that anybody? Flint. As a cautionary tale. Sir, I think I saw your hand in the way, way, way back. Yeah, so yeah, it already matters. It's an amenity. Now you want to preserve it. Sir.
Collaboration, you already have buy-in if you have everybody in the community.
That's it, right on.
Consultants have been known to make mistakes.
No, are you kidding? Sir.
I'm voting as a local.
Yep. Yep.
Of course we have to bring a consultant in because we don't have anybody here who would have a clue.
Yeah, I appreciate, and like, this guy is basically being the id of the community right now, which I love. Right. This was actually kind of a trick question in a way, and I'm going to tell you why in just a minute. So then you play this through. You have this cross-sector group come up with some strategies for the community. The likelihood of those strategies being taken seriously, is it higher or lower than the external consultant? It is higher. Because you can disagree with a consultant. It is hard to disagree with your neighbor, right? You have good faith in the people you know. You have less faith in the people you don't know or who you perceive as profiting from your problem, right? So some of the recommendations get implemented. Let's talk about second order implications. Let's say some of the recommendations don't work. What does the community do as a response? Fire the cross-sector group? What do? Yeah, in most communities, they will forgive and say, okay, what are we going to do now? Again, because you're working with people you know, people in the community. In closing, before we sort of come to the questions, the folks at the Johnson Foundation at Wingspread this program has been in the works for a long, long time. And at lunch today, I heard Danielle say that they know the 4 markers of resilient communities. And I want to draw one distinction. And that is that a lot of people think about resilient communities as communities that have had to go through a terrible situation because we judge their resilience by how well they bounce back. And I would like to live in a state, Wisconsin, where I live here. I would like to live in a state where Racine County doesn't wait for a gigantic shoe to drop to prove how resilient they are, right? But here's what we know about resilient communities, and you can see that some of these answers were woven into our choices tonight. Resilient communities have visionary cross-sector leaders who aren't afraid of change. So their vision is stronger than the resistance. If you have time, Google the change formula. It's fascinating to think about how vision has to be stronger than resistance. And if the voices we hear are the voices of resistance, and we don't have a vision that's bigger, those resistant voices always win. Second quality of a resilient community is folks who recognize that, the sum of the whole is bigger than the individual parts. That African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. The third thing that resilient communities know and do better is they know how to collaborate with their neighboring communities. Maybe those are intergovernmental agreements. Maybe it's just sharing, right? I remember in the Denver metro area, when I was on the chamber board for the Greater Madison Chamber, we took a trip to Denver. And one of the things that Mayor Hickenlooper did as soon as he was elected was he said, I'm going to have all the mayors together for a barbecue at my house. And they did this on a monthly basis moving forward, right? It was informal, right? It was just to say what's going on, how can we help each other? But that notion that we work together. And then the final thing, this is what I love, is resilient communities have a sense of urgency. Most often, it's from a terrible thing that's happened to them. It is literally a gun to the head, which means you're relying on somebody to manufacture your urgency. What if our urgency became, we heard from Rob, our pants are too tight, we're going to get a different box from Stitch Fix, right? We're gonna rock a different outfit because this one is uncomfortable. This isn't the one we want to live and walk around in. So these are kind of the 4 hallmarks. And what I would ask you to do, because, if you want someone to change, you do it first. If you want your system to change, you want your politics to change, you change first. I'd love you to just think about, how visionary am I? How change friendly am I? Do I work well together with others? Do I understand that together we go far? Right? Am I advocating for neighboring cooperation, intergovernmental cooperation? And do I have a sense of urgency? When your millennials have more urgency than your boomers, I worry. Right? Okay, so with that, shall we rock some Q&A? All right, let's do it. Let's rock some Q&A.
Let's give Rebecca a round.
Oh.
Did I not tell you that this was going to be fun tonight and interactive? You definitely lived up to that promise.
And this is tip of the iceberg stuff.
Yeah.
Imagine if we got them working in teams.
I can't even imagine.
It makes your head explode, doesn't it?
Great. We've got our setup crew here so we can get nice and comfortable.
Thank you for the vodka. That is so nice. I really appreciate that. Exactly. You are not allowed to touch mine,
I won't be drinking
Ashley.
that.
Awesome.
So I'm sure there are a lot of questions in the audience. So let's get started with a show of hands. Does anybody have a question, quick thought? Susie's also tracking our online questions as well. I know that's a lot to take in, and there was a lot of interaction already built into the presentation, but just curious what you all thought and what your questions are.
Oh, you opened it up now. Here we go. Here we go. It's on. Are we waiting for Alan to?
Yes, please
Okay.
wait until Alan comes.
Thank you. I was really surprised by the polling numbers in regard to the event center, because being a representative from the city of Racine, I hear something far different than what I saw on the screen this afternoon. So I'm wondering if there is a difference between the people that are perhaps texting to the people that contact their elected representatives or come to the council meetings and speak regarding this event.
Let's help Sandy on this. How many of you in this audience vote in the city of Racine? How many of you vote in the city of Racine? Show of hands. Okay. So not the majority. How many of you work in the city limits of Racine? Like your employer is located in the city limits of Racine. Okay. So I feel like 2 things need to happen. 1, every person who lives here needs to call you, but also you need to tell your business owners how you feel, and they can help give you a lot of cover, because it bums me out. Like, as employees, we don't have a vote in the city, even though it's most of our experience. But boy, those businesses do. So let's make sure we activate our businesses. There's another coming over here.
We'll just wait 1 second for Alan to come. Thank you.
Alan, who's been here since noon, just busting butt. I love this guy. Yes, Alan!
I had the same thought when I saw the event percentages and everything. And the first thing that came to my mind was terminology of an event center. Yes, this city desperately needs an event center, but I feel that the selling that's been done so far is a sports arena, hotel, sports arena, event center. And I think the caveat that really irritates a lot of people is the sports arena at part of it. I think we're probably the only major city in the state without a hotel in a downtown area. So a nice hotel would be great down there, and having conference rooms that you could bring in different events to hold conventions and exposition shows and everything like that. Sports, it's not on the top priority, I would think. But by the way it was stated on the screen, I think a lot of people are in favor of an event center, because it would definitely be a boom to the downtown area with a hotel. But the terminology that's been used in the newspaper and locally over the past few months is highlighting more in the sports arena.
It's good. It's good.
Thank you. Other questions? We have
Yes,
Laura,
so many.
and then Julie, and then Greg.
Alan needs a twin.
So from your experience, what alternative kinds of structures or networks have been set up in resilient cities that work to broaden the voice, to create traction for movement, and to create a plan that's actionable, or
Yeah.
multiple plans that are actionable?
Yep. So the first one that comes to mind is the collective impact model made famous in Cincinnati. And the collective impact model basically, and a lot has been written on both sides of this, but basically what it said is, we're not going to let our K-12 school or our kindergartens and pre-kindergartens report numbers that don't make sense with the next grade level and don't make sense with the next grade level, and let all of our high schools report numbers differently. If we want to be successful, we want to know if we've been successful. And so all of the chief administrators in the school district and all the funders sat together. They agreed on a set of metrics they were all going to work against, and then it was mandated that they attended these meetings to like iron out how the processes were going to work. So, because it's so easy for us to just go back to the way it's always been done if there's no ongoing. But the fact that the philanthropic community was there saying, we're done continuing to fund need. We want to fund results, and we have to have a way to measure. So collective impact comes to mind. Second thing that comes to mind is there's this methodology that is now being incubated at Purdue called strategic doing. And what I really love about this is we know that like our thorniest community issues aren't going to be solved by a single department or a single group. So I think about equity. Every community that I work with is struggling with issues of equity. And for those of you who don't know, equality is akin to giving everybody a pair of shoes. Equity is giving everybody a pair of shoes that fits, right? So how do we move from equality, to equity? And the strategic doing model, it assembles stakeholders and says, basically, what can we do that doesn't require permission and that does not require anybody's money? What assets do we have around this issue that we can start doing things tomorrow? And it works in a very rapid 30-day model. So in 30 days, what do we want to have done? In another 30 days. And the network is open. So nobody is excluded. If you care about equity, come to our strategic doing equity group. And I have seen some amazing things, like the Muscle Shoals area of Alabama, super impoverished. They started using strategic doing 2 years ago. They just got a $47 million grant from the Department of Labor targeted at their tech industry, which, may I tell you, 2 years ago, nobody knew what a tech industry was. But there were a few entrepreneurs and economic development folks who got together and said, how can we do things that aren't going to require permission or any new money? What can we do together? So community impact model, strategic doing model are two methodologies, but it has to be interdisciplinary. This notion that like, oh, local government will fix it. Stop. It's going to take all of us.
Wonderful. Alan, we have a question up here.
What did having our part of the room vote as a block help us learn?
I don't know if it helped us learn anything. I was just running the experiment. Well, here's the truth. I didn't want a bunch of like happy horse shit in this room. I wanted there to be a leveling component to this, because I wasn't sure how people were going. I forced you to choose things. So I wanted to know. If there could be a control. So I don't know that it taught us anything, but I wanted that voice represented. Was it hard to do?
Yeah, because I'm a transplant. I've lived here for 4 years.
I'm a transplant. I've lived here for 4 years, and I've got an opinion about everything, but I think everybody in the room does too. That the direction that things are going need leadership. The people die where there's no vision. Mm-hmm. And to have a vision that is clear and a vision that can be communicated to multiple groups, some of whom don't want to hear it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Right here, Ellen.
Joy.
Hi.
Okay.
I have this thought whirling around in my head, and I'm trying to figure out how to kind kind of pull it all together. So for resilient communities to grow, economic development is key, which equates to businesses staying here, actively choosing to stay here and continue to bring new businesses here to feed that funnel. And the talent gap is significant. And so how do we loop that all together? And where does the leadership come from? Because there's also a lot of organizations and a lot of people out there that are so positive and well-meaning. So we're sitting here at Wingspread. Yeah. We have Visioning a Greater Racine. We have Racine Economic Development Corporation. We have RAMAC. We have all these different players that seem to be out there. And what's your thought about how do you bring that all together? And how do we fix that talent gap? Because it's significant.
Yeah. I mean, my first thought is, who in this community wakes up thinking about talent every single day? I mean, if it's a little bit of Jenny's job and it's a little bit of Raymac's job and it's a little bit of what we're doing here and it's da-da-da-da-da-da, if it's a little bit of everybody's job, it's nobody's job. So who wakes up thinking about that every day? Worrying about that every day, being held accountable for it every day. So that's my first question. You need to have somebody or an organization who does that. But the second thing then is, when you think about all those organizations that have a piece of talent, maybe that's also where this collective impact model comes in to say, all right, here's the deal. If you want my time and energy and support, we have to have measurable outcomes. And maybe it doesn't help you in year 1, but in year 3, you start to see the benefits. And that's the other thing I just want to note here is, when I wrote my last book, I dedicated it to the great-great-grandchildren of my godson. And Avery just turned 28, and he and his wife are expecting their first boy, Wendell, in August. And I know I will never meet Avery's great-great-grandchildren, but that's not the point. The point is that my efforts have to add up to something that his great-great-grandchildren can be proud of. And my challenge to you would be, what could you commit to? And this is going to be audacious and bold. What could you commit to with your discretionary time for 10 years? And I don't mean you need to spend every Saturday doing it. That is not what I'm saying, but what could you really bite into for 10 years that would make a difference in this community? For 10 years. And 10 years is half of a generation, right? It's half of a generation. Could you dedicate 10 years of your passion and love and discretionary efforts to something? Because I, as a futurist, I'm the slowest futurist you'll ever meet, right? I believe we need to be working in 10-year cycles, 20-year cycles, and it all has to add up. But a little here and a little there and a flavor of the week, it's exhausting.
Great. Alan, you want to come over here? Lots of hands. Love to see that.
I'll give my cell phone number later and we can talk more.
So this is fantastic information.
Hey, Jason, what's up?
Not much. Lots of great stuff. I'm wondering if you could sum up one action item when we walk out the door tonight that you would think this is the first thing you guys need to be focused on when you leave this room tonight. That is going to be a catalyst for change.
Yeah, I don't think you're asking for a silver bullet, Jason. I don't think that's your question. I think what you're asking is, we have a bias for action. Humans have a bias for action. So what is one thing we can do? Well, shoot, what do you guys think the answer is?
Annex the city of Racine into Mount Pleasant.
So what we should all do is annex the city into Mount Pleasant. That is going to be hard for all of you to do. It has to, whatever you do, it has to start here. I don't know what that one right thing would be. Do you have an idea, Jason? Yes, of course, please. Yeah.
Just wait for Alan. Yeah. Thank you.
I think we in our lunch today we talked a little bit about bringing people together to make change, and we Ashley and the Johnson Foundation brought all of us together into this room, and we're all here. And are we all going to leave and forget about the people we were just in the room with tonight? Or are we going to make an honest effort to connect with the people and understand why some people think we should annex Racine into Mount Pleasant, and understand why some people feel this way about the event center, and work together to drive things forward? You know, I think it's connectivity and not leaving this room tonight and forget about the people we were just in the room with.
Yeah, I like that, and that takes effort. One of the themes that, totally. One of the themes that came out at lunch today, and I think maybe it bears repeating now, is this notion of isolation. You know, we're turning into the hole in the donut when it comes to what's happening in the counties around us. We don't have transit that connects us to two huge areas, one certainly larger than the other. A lot of our social differences have become invisible because I was a government cheese kid. You saw my family stand in line for government cheese, but even poverty and food stamps are invisible to you now because it's all on cards. And so, we've managed to become isolated. We build porches on the backs of our house instead of the fronts of our house. So maybe the first thing is, what will you say yes to that you could have a yes to that would be about supporting somebody else's vision? Or maybe you have a great idea, and who would say yes to you to support something you want to do? It does start right here. Anyway, Ashley, you maybe have an idea as well. I don't know.
I'm going to get to that at the end.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Over here. What about our Facebook Live people?
Do you mind? Let's go back to Facebook Live.
Susie. Oh, Alan, yep. How many people do we have?
Oh, we've had about 25 the entire time, so it's a jump in audience. We're feeling real good about it. And we've got some really good comments on here about things that we need to do to be that catalyst for change. But for now, a question. We have two pretty complementary ones, so I'm going to just kind of combine them. What do we do to spark collaboration? How do we get people to collaborate? And then also, how do we make consensus work moving forward? How do we get to a place where consensus is what we are striving for?
Oh, Christmas. Collaboration is about energy. People want to collaborate on things that they have energy for. So just like collaboration for the sake of collaboration is a fool's errand. You've got to figure out what people have energy for. So I think it's three things. It's like, what is the issue that people have energy for? Do you have a process that really supports that? Because if you don't have a process that supports the change that you're trying to effectuate, people just don't have time for crappy process. And then the third thing is, who's doing the asking? Mary Dowell, who used to raise a lot of money in the Milwaukee metro area, she said, anytime you're asking for something, it's about who asks and what the ask is for. So who's doing the inviting? Who's doing the Who's doing the inviting? And the second question was about, what was it about, Susie? Sorry.
Building consensus.
Building consensus. Oh man, my first thought is sometimes consensus is overrated. I know that your region would benefit from more consensus. Don't get me wrong. But it's also important to have a healthy dialogue. Kind of back to Jason's point. One of the things that we've lost is our ability to hold two different ideas in our head simultaneously. It's like, if you don't agree with me, I don't even want to hear from you. Somehow I just write you off. And that's not helpful. And I think if we just are trying to drive towards consensus, which usually means you're going to agree with my point of view, that's a false choice on the front end. So I do think, I know a lot of people are kind of freaked out about the political tone in America right now. I'm actually wildly optimistic because I feel like we have to sort of bottom out so that we can recognize this is not working. I've been saying babies are never born without blood and screaming.
Thank you.
Right. I'm a futurist. I'm here to tell you that.
All right. Are you going to end that there?
No. No. That is not where I want to end it. I want to do one more thing. Are you okay if I do one more poll? Sure. Just to take the focus off your pregnancy?
Thank you.
Okay, grab your phone for one more thing here. This kind of goes to your question. But what's one thing that each of us could do in the next 30 days that would have a great impact on our future? And you can think about Racine, you can think about Racine County. I don't care. But this is open-ended. Don't worry about your spelling. Your ideas are going to start to pop up on the screen now, so we can sort of hive mind this a little bit. Get breakfast together. I love breakfast. Let's go. That's right. What else? Here it comes. Join Wild Root Market. Show up. Get involved in Visioning Greater Racine. How does one do that?
Like us on Facebook.
Okay.
We have visioning sessions. Actually, we had our big old Crump Butler.
Cool.
And then we're going to be moving into the implementation phase, but we can reach out to folks through Facebook.
Okay, awesome. Be open-minded, demand and support leadership. Here. Become an owner of Wild Root Market. Wild Root, you are in the house. Create hometown pride. Yeah, how about, stop looking at your feet when you say you're from Racine. I'm from Racine. You haven't heard of it? What's the matter with you? Yeah, that's good stuff. Cool. These are probably going to scroll for a while. Keep it going. We'll keep this active. Let you guys have the last word. Oh, I'm sorry. You probably want the last word.
Of course.
Duh.
While this is going, I want to just say that as the series comes to an end, the next phase of our collaborative work begins. This series, as we said in the onset, is the first step in our efforts to begin a new kind of dialogue on the future of our communities. And now that it's over, we're going to be taking this series on the road, meeting one-on-one with groups and government councils throughout our region, sharing both learnings from the experts and feedback from all of you. So even what you're putting up here are things that we can use to share throughout our community and to our government councils as well. But ultimately, we hope... Pray. Oh, party. Ultimately, we hope leaders will accept our open invitation to come to the table here at Wingspread in the spirit of cooperation to explore the possibilities and determine what can and must be done now to put our neighborhood of communities on a path to resilience. So there will be more details to come in August, but in the meantime, here's some ideas from me about what each of us can do. Oh, that was dark. Okay.
Brighten us up, Ashley.
Here are some things that we can do. Join the discussion online, as we've been promoting throughout the series. Invite other people to the conversation. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and share tonight's live stream link. Second, which many of you have done already in the past 2 briefings, take our survey. That's another great way to provide feedback and share your opinions with us. Third, go to your village board or city council meetings. Listen, participate, observe. Working in government and holding elective office is a lot harder job than you think it is. Have breakfast with someone you don't know and get to know them better, and in fact go even further and have breakfast with a local elected representative. And lastly, something fun, ignore the borders and enjoy all of the offerings that all of our communities have throughout this summer. We'll see you all there, and you'll have an opportunity to connect with somebody that you may or may not know. So,
yes.
Thank you.
Oh my God.
Interesting. All right. Thank you all for joining us here in person and online. Rebecca, thank you so much
My
for
pleasure.
this.
Yeah,
great
absolutely.
All right, now is the time to All right, now is the time to head over and talk to someone you don't know, engage a little bit more in conversation for those of you here over at Hospitality in Wingspread. So we'll see you over there.
See you over
Thank
there.
There is a way to engage in civil dialogue. Nothing really big has ever happened in this country or anywhere in the world that didn't involve a discourse that can take place in an environment that's a neutral environment, in an environment where people feel free to express themselves, but also feel free to listen to each other.